Okay guys, I'm going to just give you a few quick tips and tricks catching trophy shark. We all know it is what it is. Most people are using a Troy, especially if you're farming or you're doing any of the comps. So I'm just going to show you a few tips and tricks if you're not familiar with using a telescopic rod. Realistically, it shouldn't work. It's a 13-pound setup, rod, reel. I like to set my leader or bobber depth at 27 inches. You typically cast it, let it set for a minute or so. You can tell, especially if you're on a good peak, it shouldn't take too long to know if your spot's active or not. So you might give it a couple minutes tops. If you don't catch one, then you're going to want to try to make things happen, whether that's rotate or simply put. The good thing about the telescopic rods, you can usually, we already got action. I'll lift my rod up a little bit, try to get in on it, and then get to it as quick as you can. The thing you'll notice is this thing will break your line if you're not careful, because you're using a 13-pound setup. A lot of times, in my opinion, you could have 3 to 7 sharks all in one spot. Just depends on how active the spot is. Sometimes you might get a trophy right off the bat. I'll usually cast. Most of the time, I won't catch more than 3 in one spot. These are all shark marks. I could probably just do with 1 or 2, but I've left them. Now, since I'm a little bit off the mark, there's a number of things you can do. And that's why I was going to allude to before I caught that other one. If you don't get a bite fairly quick, well, he's back again. And sometimes if it's a bigger one, you'll see. That's probably another small one. See, if you stay on top of them close enough, you can just reel them in right after the other. Another one back to back, 174. Now this is where things can get interesting. It can get really slow. Even though they're biting on shrimp, I'm going to go ahead and rotate the blood or meat chunk or something else, just to see if I can get a response out of the common or preferably a trophy. Again, you can see the spot's active, so there's no sense of leaving just yet. Like I said, I wouldn't sit at a spot more than 2 minutes real time. 3 tops if you're not getting a bite, especially if you're in a decent peak. Again, that's 60 foot to 40 foot. Some guys will get up 30, well, I can't remember what the rule is, 34 feet or something. You can actually get away from them. But one thing I'll tell you too is if you go to pull this, you can reel it in, but you could scare them. So what I'll normally do, put your bell down. If you notice where your drag is, put your bell down. That way, if you get a strike, it won't scare them. You can use this to pull it around. Sometimes you'll get a bite when you're pulling it. If you don't, get it close to your marker, then let off. See, that way if a shark hit, you can let it down instantly. And that kind of helped us get a bite a little quicker. And it may be a trophy, may not be. And this is the part I was going to show you on another rod and reel setup here. Here's the part, this could break my line. But it didn't. And that's how you get a trophy. If you notice, I caught 3 fish in succession. This is part 1 on sharks. I'm going to throw multiple of them up, but you'll notice just switching the bait, kept the same hook size. And I will show you that my leader depth was 27 inches. I just went down, but it was at 27. That's where I just always leave it there. Not saying you can't catch them at 10 inches, not saying you can't catch them at 40, but generally speaking, you want them towards the top of the water. Now what I would do is rotate, and I'll show you another way in the next video. But just a general setup. This is the deluxe Troy, but you can go with the generic one. Just like I said, 13, 13, 13. No leader, odd part, and that was meat chunk. Okay, guys, I hope that helped you. And I'll go on different ways of catching them with the different rod setup here shortly.